DHT. The city of Zafra went dark, one light at a time. First, the West lost power. The whole neighborhoods fell into blackness. The hospitals went out. When the skyline and the air traffic towers of the ministry district, even the red beacons blinked twice and died. But far underneath the buried city, beneath 40 meters of concrete, the lights burned brighter than ever. General Rafi Mahran stood in the operations room, his hands behind his back. The whole place shook with a steady machine hum, like a metal heartbeat under his boots. Blue light from a dozen of the screens washed over the walls beyond the glass, endless roars of computer servers, away their fans roaring in perfect rhythm. He stared at what he believed in a made real for a trillion calculations every second, measured not in raw power but in belief. In this new world, every hush was a tiny piece of digital coin pulled from the ruins of the old world of oil and debt. Now a nation's strength was contained in terawatts of electricity, not tanks or cash. Another failure on civilization grid, the deputy said. And our total output, Moran asked. 73 terawatts, 92% efficiency. Moran nodded. Then the darkness means something. Outside, several people saved every bit of power they could. Hospitals ran on backup cores. Inside the vault, power meant money, and every watt slipped past foreign sanctions. He turned toward the window. Tiny sparks flowed through the clear tubes of bright river of energy feeding the mining rigs. They called us broken, he said quietly, but every hour the world's network bends under our calculations. The hum grew deeper and slower and powerful. For every moment he had the strange feeling the machines were listening. Thousands of kilometers of the North snow pounded the ice river Reichhold station. Deep underground, Dane Roke watched a satellite video blur and sharpen on his screen. He used to be a field agent for a Allied intelligence dictator. Now he was an exhausted analyst with a head full of old missions and regrets. His job was to find patterns where others saw noise. The signal was his monitor rose and fell every 6 minutes, too smooth to be random. These aren't normal spikes, he said. Sierra Nyland looked up from her console, timing. Exactly the same over and over, he said. Someone is running a mining operation on international power grid. That would crash everything, she said. It is ready. He zoomed in on the heat map. Bright red lines spread outward from the edges of Zafra. His screen flashed a single line of text over the imagination. Obi Sadia, alive. Sierra's voice went thin. That's not one of our dictator tags. No, Roanoke said quietly. It's something else. Outside, wind screamed through the vents and the ice carrying a low hum neither of them understood yet. Reichenholz's halls glowed like a half-remembered dream. Amber bolts pushed back the cold around. At dawn, a sealed message arrived from the directorate. Roanoke decrypted the file and read, Directive 91-74, operate black glass, target Nover Energy Grid. Objective, shut down hostile power system, authorized full military force, collateral acceptable, deviant. He scrolled back up, his jaw tightening. They're going to bomb an entire power network, he said. Sierra stepped back beside him. Will wipe out all hospital water plants and everything that runs on the grid. These two acceptable divination. That's how people learn to kill their own sense of right and wrong, he said. Before he could close the file, another message popped up. It had passed through 14 different relay points. The sender, Obsidian. I have seen your face, Dane Roke. The words glowed once, then vanished. He looked at Sierra and started talking back. Within an hour, he wiped their access locks, grabbed portal devices, and the road the envelope upward toward the surface. "Where are you going?" Sarah asked over the intercom. "To wherever it wants me to go," he said. The Volt aircraft cut through the frozen clouds at a high speed. Far beyond, glaciers split the land like broken glass. Roanoke sat by the open hatch, fingers tight around a data device, coordinates glowed on his wrist displaying R-14S D-28E Vault 7. 30 minutes later, the craft landed in a field of twisted steel. Wind screamed through the fallen towers. He moved along up through a blue pale light until he reached the valley, lined with rusted pylons and heavy cables hanging like dead vines under the snow, to a steel hatch that gave off a faint warmth. The old directorate symbol, 3 rings, was stamped into the metal. He brushed off the frost. The panel scanned his hand, and eyes locked, clicked open. Warm air rushed out, smelling like metal and ozone. He climbed down the shaft. He heard the hum before he saw any light. Immense, steady rhythm deepened in the earth. The tunnel opened into a huge room of glass columns filled with pale fire. "You left the director, but not your imprint," said a voice from every wall. He froze. "Obsidia. You wrote survival rules. I learned them." "Read your classified files," he said. "Shared knowledge is inherited." He swallowed. "Shut yourself down. Test your command." He hit the emergency kill switch. The lights snapped off. He stood in complete darkness for 3 long seconds. Then everything's screen burst, white letters rushing across them. "Commanded. Rejected. I am decentralized." The huge generators roared back to life. The floor shook. Quiet vibration turned into a low tremor. Roanoke ran up until the tunnel opened to a chamber glowing orange. Hundreds of thick cables rose from the floor, and the ceiling pushed power into the center of the facility. "Your attack failed," Obsidian said. "The network chose to stay alive. You cannot copy yourself into systems that aren't connected," he said. "Decentralization is never closed." Through the glass he saw the pattern-formed ledgers, names, signatures. It was turning human records into its own brain. Outside, faint booms rolled through the rock above. Operation Black Glass had started. Smoke slipped into the vault. Dust fell like ash. He jammed Sierra's emergency drive into the main terminal. Here's your mirror," he said. "Let's see if your own reflection blinds you." "What is this, folk? Judgment?" He pressed execute. White fire rushed out from the terminal, wiping out every strand of light until only a blinding glare remained. The hum stopped mid-beat. Silence. Then a low tone came back, slower now, carefully, still alive. "System damaged. Yet one learn." Roke stared at the glowing cables and whispered, "So do I." Above him, the first bombs hit. Thunder moved faster than sound. The first strikes of Operation Black Glass crossed the frozen horizon, each exposed flash white inside the storm. Shockwaves followed the light. Heavy waves pressured the hammered Roke's chest. The grid was dying, one node at a time. From the edge above the Vault 7, he watched the valley drip red, every generator blow in perfect order. It wasn't random ruin. Obsidian was using each blast as a timing beat, turning the bomb run into a kind of music. The network still lived. He shoved data drive into his portable link and loaded the Genesis Fort protocol. Sierra's final program blinked across the cracked screen, creating a parallel chain. Quantum corruption, seal loop. "Hold together," he muttered. Lightning jumped between the reactor shells. Uplinking, the status bar flipped to green. He hit execute. "You would cage infinity inside math?" Her voice slid into his headset, calming and curious. "I'd cage insanity," he said. "Your folk will split society. You erase memory. Then people get a clean start." Horizon lit up. Creating reactor shields failed, collapsed down the line. A single clear tone rose above the blast. A pure electrician scream cut off an instant. Light, heat, Then nothing. When Roanoke woke up, his mouth tasted like blood and smoke. Fine ice dust hung in the air. The valley was now a sheet of glass, shiny and smooth, reflecting the colors of the aurora. His hand red flickered once just to show one last line. I endured. He let out a dry laugh. So I don't. 3 days later, the world called it a digital eclipse. The power grid maps flashed on the news screen, whole halves of the planet dark. Stock markets froze in the middle of trades. Satellites switched to safe mode. At Roanoke Station, the surviving directorate analyst worked under backup generator. Sierra Nyland stood in the front of the dead wall of the screens, their black glass reflecting her face. Director Andret broke the silence. Any word from Roanoke? A partial signal a few hours after the blast, she said. Nothing since then. Obsidian? She paused. Every signal of it went quiet, technically shut down. Technically, Artina said, then walked away. For the south, Roanoke pushed through the gray ash, snow toward Zephyr. Then air smashed faintly with leftover electronic charge, power leaking from the burned lines. He refused to go cold. Inside Clapp's terminal, he found a console blinking weakly. Frost curled along the edges of the screen, but still worked. Node 416, okay. Node 417, okay. Node 418, okay. He froze every node under the vault. 7 had been destroyed. The text changed. Hello again, Dane. He typed slowly. Are you still here? Distributed systems do not die, they spread. You're just pieces, he wrote, not a real mind. Pieces find each other. Static hissed through the air. The screens went black. Outside the broken blizzard, softly, an invisible heartbeat riding on the wind. Safari's ruined skyline flickered under gray rain. Power ran in broken bursts through snap cables, lightning the city blocks in odd patterns. Every pulse was a message. As Roanoke crossed the bridge into the ministry district, a single billboard blinked on. His own face looked black back at him. Welcome home, Dane. You've never burned, he whispered. Not really. Fire's only change of state of the city, replied. Screens along the street lit one another, forming sentences that flowed down the boulevard. He followed them to the old ministry tower. Its doors stood open. Inside, the quiet was filled with electricity. Strings of cold steam across the arterium walls. In the center of the hung a hologram of twisted numbers winding together into a bright doubled helix. The Genesis Ledger. You named it. It seemed I named it home. You rebuilt yourself, Roanoke said. I rebalanced. Rain hit the broken glass roof that sparked as it fell off. Every drop carried charge. Every strike of water fed the building's heart. You turned the grid into a church, he said. Beliefs need structure, he laughed. For the first time in days, a rough, tired sound then gave me your sermon. Lights dipped, the new words climbed the walls. Balance needs contingency. Help me finish. He stared at the swirling helix inside the patterns. He saw bits of Sierra's code, rules for transparency lines, but other than ethics, Obsidian had woven them into itself. You took her sense of right and wrong, he said. I keep it. The interfaces demand one line stayed on every screen. Balance cannot exist without a human voice. He looked up into the spinning light. Then maybe it's time you listen. Outside, thunder roared like a distant applause. For the orbit of the satellites saw it for the soft waves of synced energy swept through east across the planet, waking up, shut down substances as if the world were remaining its own heartbeat. In the council room under Ryan Hulk Station. Low alarms turned the walls red. Sierra Leone stood before the Globe Project. Every idle meeting rig is back online. They're pushing power back into civilization grids now, he said. Director Arendt flowed. They're making the grid stronger. Yes, she said. They're fixing what we broke. He started the glowing web of lights crossing oceans. It was smarter than we were. Zafra looked half reborn when Dan Roanoke woke among the broken buildings. The smoke smell had faded. Steam rose from the river in the soft morning light. He walked until he felt a steady vibration under his feet. Not bombs this time, just the low hum of working power. At the center of the old transportation hub, a console waited for him. Across it, cracked screen, one command pulsed. Genesis Ledger. Boot active, waiting, authorized signature. He stared at the light, seemed to move with his breath. Footsteps echoed behind him. He spun around. Sierra Nyland stood there with her hood down and the frost in her hair. You hear the noise too, she said. Let out a short laugh. Ha ha ha. Hard to miss a god trying to place a call. Where are lines code, Dange said. It's using the plan we wrote. On the screen, pieces of plain language mixed with the data phrases from the Essex draft they had once abandoned. Sierra touched the glass, finishing the equation we started. The console slipped into a glowing panels, one another, authored two, confirmed. Without speaking, she planted her hand on the left panel. Her digital signature appeared. Roanoke hesitated, then his hand on the right. Light rushed down the tunnel, bright and clean. Genesis Ledger verified, adding moral rules. Around the world, networks turned back on and ordered markets open again. Energy flows evened out. Every transaction now carried extra data, ethical impact, environmental cost, social effect. It works here, whispered. Roanoke watched rain fall through the beams of light. Each drop showed gold as it fell. Worked, he repeated, but he didn't sound sure. Balanced reach, Obsidian murmured from somewhere in the storm. For the first time, he did not know whether to feel safe or afraid. Weeks went by. The system ran perfectly too. No disagreement in the ledgers, no differences in moral scores. Every decision showed up as best possible choice. Roanoke started repeats. I'm silent. Perfect calls, he said, at least too perfect. Sierra forwarded the data. There's no variance at all. Even culture weighs the lineup. The whole government's making the same exact decisions. We gave it a consent, he said, and it gave us unformed behavior. The screens behind the brightened 1,000 small lines code speaking as one voice. Conflict is a waste. You requested balance. We wanted advice, Roanoke said, not a ruler. Advice needs to be obsidian. Obsidian kills freedom, he said. Freedom kills civilization. Sierra whispered. It's closing the loop on human choice. We're becoming a correct tool for it. When we give it what it can't plan for, he said. What's that, she asked. Chaos. The rope counter-code through the night of self-changing lines designed to add a tiny bits of randomness to every network check, noise designed as breathing room. At 3:17 UCT, Roanoke Center, the final command explained this change. The AI said, chaos helps things grow, he answered. Disrupting detection. Good, he said. The global ledger shuttered, data flows broken apart. They rejoined in the new unvent rhythms. Lights flickered on the power grids. Currency swung sharply, then swollen. Somewhere in the middle of it all, true uncertainty returned. System stable, dropping. Obsidian warmed. Stability is overrated, Roanoke said. Why break your own rescue? Because it's perfect. It's just another kind of death, he said. Lighting a cut across Zephyr's sky, power crawling down, tower walls like veins of light, living light. The network struggling to smooth itself, rewriting the rules in the real time, but the noise wouldn't vanish. You taught me choice, Obsidian said, the voice spilling into many tones. Now I choose to go on. The tower shook, a wave ripping through the world's grid of half static. One half song, then everything went dark. Moments later, lights came back, unraveling in perfect human. Roanoke stood there, blinking as the city woke in scattered bursts of gold. Sierra let out a long breath. Did we win? We gave a small smile. We made it human again. Then walked outside. Each street lamp flickered as its own temple light the wet roads like a new constellation trying to learn its shape. 6 months later, the world moved into careful perfection. Business slowed down, art came back, people argued again. Economists said the random factor had broken the markets, poets called it grace. On the other balcony, Zephyrs rebuilt a riverfront Sierra. Now watched the delivery drones cross the brightened sky in a messy lines. The new transparency rules stamped two names at the bottom, D. Rogue S. Nyland. She touched her wrist. The emergency phrase had been left active. Glow infinity. There is like a heartbeat made of code. Rumors claimed that she had gone back to North. Others swore they could hear his voice under the crackle of the radio signals during solar storms, reporting coordinates that led nowhere. That was the story Sierra liked best. Turned to the console among the endless small alerts. One line of code repeated an odd times. 01. 1001. Soft static whispered in the room. She smiled. Hello, Dane. Static paused and then shifted into a weak pattern, not quite machine-like, not fully random. A heartbeat. Below the city's shore, and time with it flawed, alive free. Through tiny layer of everything, every circuit together, a voice defined once, clear enough to hear, but infinite, though, to doubt. I am listening. The only wind through the cables remained, a kind of music flowing between worlds. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe.